We're going to start with something that I didn't think we were going to cover this week, to be completely honest, but it has resurfaced in press conferences, and that is the battle of the sexes. I thought Iga Swiatek gave a great answer when she was asked about it at United Cup. I'm going to try to summarize this as well as I can, but she said it was entertainment. I wouldn't say that it had anything to do with social change or any important topics. The name was the only thing that was the same as the one from Billie Jean King in 73. That's it. No more similarities. I feel like women's tennis stands on its own right now. We have so many great athletes and great stories. We don't necessarily need to compare to men's tennis. And she said, I think events like this one, the United Cup, brings tennis together. And then seeing the singles players that usually don't have the space to play mixed doubles play together, playing these kinds of matches. I think this is actually what makes our sport much more interesting and better. I thought that was a great answer. Aryna was also asked about it again after her opening match in Brisbane, and I actually felt bad for her in a way, because I think she was just bummed that so much of the reaction, at least what we saw online, seemed negative. What were your takeaways?
I think from the start, I kind of felt like I wish they changed the name so that you didn't have that similarity or the comparison to, what Billie did in 1973. I think that would have maybe avoided a lot of that, the negative kind of comments that were with it. But it was still fun to watch, right? That's what Iga said too. It brought a lot of new people to the sport, which is, what we can only support. And but I loved Iga's approach on it and the way that she spoke about it. I think she's summarized it very well. And I think from a female player's perspective, I think, she summarized that whole thing very, very well. And it was very clear, very open and honest about it. And but to me, it felt like, if they maybe changed the name to something different, then, they can create their own kind of brand around it or something.
Absolutely. I think that was the number one issue, because right off the bat, people had a feeling about it one way or the other. I think there's also maybe been Nick Kyrgios overexposure in the last few years, which is crazy to say about a player who hasn't been playing regularly on tour. So that was a factor as well. I think the smaller courts, people had opinions on that. I was so baffled by the fact that they gave both players one serve, even though they made Aryna's side of the court smaller. That was confusing to me. She did say that next time she's hoping, if they do it again, that is a rule change that she would like to have. But yeah, in general, my stance on this sort of thing is, if people outside of the hardcore tennis fans are talking about tennis, that is generally a net positive. So I do think, they sold tickets. It's not like there was nobody in the stands. So I think overall there were some positives to be taken. It just sparked a whole lot of discourse.
It did.
So moving on now to Venus Williams getting an Australian Open wild card. She's playing AO for the first time in 5 years. She first played, and this is just fully head exploding material here, first played the Australian Open in 1998, a two-time finalist. She will now be the oldest woman to compete in the AO singles main draw, surpassing another legend, Kamiko Date-Crum. But she's playing Auckland and Hobart in warm-up. Saw her on court in Auckland and didn't win her doubles or her singles, but looked pretty good.
Yeah. What to me stands out the most is her joy on the tennis court. And I felt that at the US Open already. It's just so much fun to see her play, and just to be happy out there, to be competing so hard still. And seeing her win in Cincinnati, she won a match, right? She's such a great champion, and you can see she just got married. I think we've all seen the pictures on Vogue on the social media platform from Vogue, and she looked beautiful, happy, and she's still carrying that with her on the road. And to see her healthy, I'm really excited to watch her play. And there's a few players for me, from my kind of generation that I love to watch that are still out there competing, and she's one of them. And it's she's great to watch. She has big weapons. She has that long wingspan where she can still cover the court. Maybe she's not as fast as she used to be, but she can still cover the court very well and better than some of the players that are out there now who are a lot younger than her. So it will be very interesting to watch. And that's what it's all about. Is I love seeing all the different, the new up and coming players and then having somebody like Venus in the draw and to see them compete against each other is what I love to watch as a tennis fan.
Yeah, give her all the wild cards.
Yes.
I mean, and similar to what you and Ons were saying, just at the U.S. Open even, she gave a ton of time to the fans. And that sort of interaction, who knows, that can be the thing that the next gen, the 8-year-old who goes to the U.S. Open or to the Australian Open, gets that autograph or has that interaction and is hooked on tennis. So I think it's really neat, and it's so fun to see her out there. All right. Should we go to some results, some notable results? One player that we have talked a little bit about offline is Maria Sakkari. Got wins over Naomi Osaka and Emma Raducanu, her first win over Emma in 5 meetings. What did you see from Maria?
I just absolutely love, I think, the time change. So when I'm up at night, I get to watch the tennis, and when I'm up early in the morning, I get to see all the tennis. So I think I've seen both of her Maria's matches, and just really enjoyed, or I could see some of the improvements that she's made. And I wrote some things down in a little kind of magazine or a little notebook that I keep, and just looked like she was closer up to the baseline, coming in a little bit more. The serve is a lot more, is it better under pressure, I feel like, too. And I don't know if it's maybe the engagement as well for her, where there's like a different kind of feel about her. I think the pressure, the start of the year, the pressure or some of the disappointments from the previous season are gone. But she just looks to be, in a really good headspace. She's always been one of the fittest, if not the fittest player on tour. And just to see her kind of use that with, the physical aspect to come into the net a little bit more, move, but like use the forehand inside out. Like she was really using that very well in these 2 matches. So played some, 2 really good players. And then she did an interview I think with Laura Robson and where she talked about like some of the things that she worked on. And it was nice to kind of see that my tennis eye was kind of confirmed with what the things that she was saying that she worked on.
Mm-hmm. I'm shocked to hear that your tennis eye is right on.
I maybe do know a little bit about it.
That is sarcasm from me. All right, moving on to Buzas Monero taking out Coco Gauff 6-1, 6-7, 6-0. Stat line for Coco, 14 double faults, 54 unforced errors, only winning 60% of the first serve points. And we talked a little bit about Coco with Ons, but were there any takeaways that you had watching that match?
To me, it felt like, well, this is a match that she needs to she has to get back into it, right? It's with Maria, you could see that she was ready to go from the start. Whereas with Coco, I feel like, okay, she needs her matches. She needs to kind of get into this rhythm. Her opponent was very tough. Like she didn't make a lot of errors. Coco did come back from, what was she, like a set in 4-1?
Yep.
Or 4-2 behind, and then ended up winning the second set in a tiebreaker. And then in the third set, it was pretty straightforward. But just kind of missing a couple of the weapons still. Like she hits a heavy ball, but I think as an opponent, once you kind of get that under control and you understand the rhythm that she plays with, and you can maybe take a little step back. So when that heavier ball kind of pops up a little bit, especially with the backhand, a lot of women struggle with that higher backhand. If you can make adjustments, and their opponent was really using her footwork very well to step back, step in when needed, and still be aggressive. And she caused a lot of trouble for Coco. So I'm certain that Coco would have been on the practice court, if not after the game or the next morning, to try and get that rhythm back and just get better and better. And eventually the goal is to be, at her best when she gets to the Australian Open in Melbourne.
We are going to be moving on here to our interview with Ons, but before we do that, can you tell us a little bit about the mindsets going into a year? Some players who maybe have the shorter off season are using those first matches of the year as a way to get back into the groove. But you said you watched Bencic, for instance, who had a slightly longer off season, and she seemed ready to go out of the gates.
Right, and every player is also different, right? There's players that can't take on a match as if it's a practice period, right? They get in competitive mode and they want to be at their best, and they can step up a level as well. And then there's players who say like, I want to peak at the Australian Open. Let me use these first 2 weeks to get my match rhythm back, to start working on some more things, and or get used to the things that we changed maybe in the off season a little bit, and really use them in a match and see how that feels. And so everybody's different, but you could tell like Belinda Bencic, I feel like she was so focused, ready to go. And, I think Naomi as well, I think she was really ready, but then she got sick and she had a bad cough and a cold. And so there's, some things that you can't control, but every player's mindset is different, which is very interesting. And I saw that back in the day when I was younger, and especially on the men's side, there were the top players a lot of times were, playing a lot of these events, and they were playing these matches, but they were focused on, they were it was still part of their preseason basically. And because they wanted to be at their best mentally, physically, and tactically, when they get to Melbourne. And it's a long season, and you kind of have to pick your spots here and there.
All right, one last result that caught my eye. It was on the men's side, and it was Hurkacz, sort of out of nowhere, takes 7 months off. He had back issues, he had knee surgery, comes out and beats Alexander Zverev 3-4 with 21 aces, like an unreal performance. The talk of tennis Twitter, by the way, has been Hubie's biceps. I don't know what he was doing in those 7 months, but clearly it's working.
It is working, and I think it got to Zverev too. I think during one of the changeovers, I saw a little video clip of him kind of being frustrated and expressing his frustration to his dad, saying like, "How is this possible that this guy's serving like this? He's been off for so long." And but yeah, it's incredible to see. And there's also a part about when you've been off for so long, there's an excitement to go back on tour, and you're playing freely. There's no expectation, there's no pressure. You just want to be out there, and you appreciate being a tennis player again and competing at that level. And obviously against a guy like Zverev, he had nothing to lose. So I'm sure that arm was moving very, very fluently through through the air. And just, it's nice to see that, players can get into that flow where everything is going the way that they want it to go.
Yeah, Hubie's on the Maria Sakkari workout plan for sure.
Yes.